Tom again. So our next task is to define a delegate called percent to feedback. So a delegate is basically almost like a variable that represents a method. In this case, our delegate, again called percent to feedback, we can create these almost like variables of the percent to feedback type, which can hold any method that has the signature that we define. So conceptually here, ultimately what we're going to use this for is that I have an array output method called show grade report that is going to display feedback, either a letter grade feedback or a descriptive feedback based on what we pass to it. So it's almost like we have this with this method, we're locking down what it does, but there's just a little piece of logic that's missing, and that little piece of logic that it needs is how to figure out what feedback to give based on the percentage. Okay, so I can develop this report method at one point, and right now dynamically, if something's happening at runtime that's causing it to choose one sort of methodology for figuring out the feedback over another. But you could also expand this and say, well, yeah, but what if I have a third way of determining a different scheme for feedback, maybe not quite as formal as the college's descriptive feedback, maybe more personal messages or something like that. You could actually develop a method to do that matches that method signature, and then you wouldn't even have to modify this array output function. You could just simply pass that new method to it. So delegates are kind of interesting. You've all used delegates, if you're in my course anyways. When we've done, delegates are used when you do your using the template to create a Windows form program and you wire events to controls. That actually makes use of delegates. You might not have realized you were doing that. Also, we'll revisit the idea of delegates when we talk more about generic programming. But for now, we'll just deal with it as per the requirement to get the basics down. So again, the task at hand is to find a delegate called percent to feedback, which takes a double argument and returns a string. Okay, so let's excuse me, let's implement that in our code. So I've started off with just a little summary documentation comment here. It's called percent to feedback. It'll be used as a reference to either of our two feedback conversion methods. It's going to take as a parameter a numeric grade, and it returns a feedback string. So let's go to coding it. This delegate is going to be, I want it to be available publicly. So it'll be publicly. I use the keyword delegate to obviously designate it as a delegate. And then the rest of it is basically the signature of the method. So methods that can be attached or represented by this delegate return a string. I'm calling the delegate percent to feedback. So it's a little bit more generic than specifically percent to letter grade or percent to description. And again, all the methods that match this delegate have to take a double as a parameter. So that's it for setting up the delegate. Okay, so it's almost like a type of variable that we've just created, and the special type of variable actually doesn't hold values, but rather it holds, if you will, methods, which is kind of interesting. So we can pass a method to another method using this mechanism. So to sort of follow through with this, what I'd like to do is skip ahead a bit to a part in main. In main, I'm supposed to declare a delegate variable of type percent to feedback, that's the delegate we just created, and initialize it with the percent to letter method. So let's do that task now. Okay, so I might move where this is a little bit later on, but for now in main, I'll just do it up near the beginning. And literally, I'll just declare a percent to feedback delegate, almost like a variable. Okay, I've called it feedback method. So the type, which is the delegate name, the name of the variable I've called feedback method equals, and I'm initializing it to the percent to letter grade. So by default in this program, if I use this feedback method, the feedback method will actually call percent to letter grade. Note that I don't put round brackets here. I'm not calling percent to letter grade. I'm simply designating the method name there. Okay, so feedback method is essentially like an alias for percent to letter grade at the moment. So another thing that we'll deal with right now while we're at it is this business here about changing what the percent to feedback variable actually points to. So change the percent to feedback variable to percent to description if the command line argument is description. Okay, and we're going to do that in a try block, and we're going to have an empty catch block. Okay, so let's implement that. Okay, so I'm just going to do it right after what we did before. So by default, feedback method represents the letter grade version. And then in a try block, now if the command line arguments, you'll notice here that in main, we don't talk about this much. There is an equivalent thing in C++, by the way. Perhaps in class I'll talk about that. But what we have is a parameter for main represents an array of various different string arguments that you could, from the command prompt, and when you're invoking this program, you could actually specify some options. So I want to look at in this array, if the array at position 0, which is a string, when I convert it to lowercase, that wasn't specified necessarily in the instructions, but I've added that in there. If that's equal to the word description, then what I want to do is I want my feedback method to be equal to percent to description. So I'm changing it from percent to letter grade to the second version of the function. And again, I mean, I could have different options here that the person invoking this program could specify and have different feedback mechanisms if I wanted to. Now I'm doing this in a try block simply because arguments at position 0 might not exist. Okay, there's other ways I could have handled this, but if it doesn't exist, unlike C++, you know, where the subscript operator doesn't throw an exception when it's out of range, you have to manage that yourself. And in C#, the subscript operator will throw an out of range type of exception. I don't really want to do anything if I get that exception. I just want to basically ignore it. So that's why I have this empty catch block. It catches whatever generic exception, which I'm anticipating is going to be you know, the idea that this doesn't exist, and I'm just a do nothing block. Alrighty. Now let's talk a little bit about where to find how to actually specify the command line arguments in Visual Studio, because we're not typically invoking this program from the command prompt. We're usually running it right here from the Visual Studio. So let's talk about where to find that. So you go to Project, and then this will be the name of your project, Properties. You'll scroll down on the left-hand side here to Debug, and then under Start Options, you'll notice there's a spot here to put command line arguments. So you can specify your command line argument in that box. Okay, so I'll say description. Okay, normally it's delineated by spaces. If you have a multi-word argument, you could put quotes around it, but I don't. Descriptions is simply simple enough. So I'm going to just leave it at that. Okay, so I'll save that. I'll go back to my code. I might as well save that too. Now let's actually test this out. So I've specified that command line argument. The first one is description. Let's do a console. This is just a temporary thing, right line. And then I'm going to use that delegate percent to feedback delegate variable as if it's a method. So feedback method, okay, so whichever feedback method it points to, open bracket, and I'm just going to put in, I don't know, put 88.8 for now, close it off, and a semicolon. Okay, oh, I'm missing a bracket. So this is just a temp debug type thing to see if it actually works. So if this works, what this should show me is whatever, it should show me the description for 88.8. So I'll run it. Exemplary. So that seems to have worked. I'm going to go back to project, properties. I'm going to take out description here, just leave it blank. Save that. Go back here, rerun it. And now you can see it's giving me A, which is the what 88.8 is as a letter grade, because that's the default. So this seems to be working. I'm going to just try one other thing. I'm not going to test every possible combination, but I'm going to put in chicken here. Go here. And I'm still getting the letter grade, which is exactly what I want to have happen. And I'm just going to go back here and put description back in. All right. So I don't need that line of code anymore, but I've got the basic delegate thing set up. So in the next video, what we'll do is we'll deal with the array processing steps. We'll create our data structure called grade stats, as well as an array processing method called calculate grade stats. This one is fairly straightforward.